I am Pup Havok, and I am from Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. So we're here recording at Claw, 2016, and I noticed that you've been particularly busy.
Yes.
What is your connection with the Claw event?
I am the vendor model manager. I work with a specialty group of guys who do a lot of the production shows on Friday Night Bingo, and we provide live models for the vendors to use and play dress up and help drive sales and all that.
So your job is to get the sexy people to wear the sexy clothes and
to get everyone else to spend some money and help the vendors out.
Yeah, to support the people who supported Claw.
Right.
So what's your connection to the pup community?
I am a God, that's So no, it was good. It was about 3.5-4 years ago is when I really kind of dove in head first and I had a rugby friend who was also a puppy, so I started asking him questions about it because he was always talking about it on social media and whatnot, and so I then came to Claw and started meeting folks. I actually did my very first mosh ever at a small bar night here in Cleveland. Okay. Before my first Claw, which was just 3 years ago now, so Claw 13, 14, yeah. So I got back to Columbus, Ohio. Found a couple other puppies. We started Cap City Pups, so that's our local pup group down there, and so I've jumped in. I've kind of been a leader in doing different things. I competed at International Puppy in 2014, which Pup Figaro won, but out of him winning and he and I becoming so close, we started Project Touchbase. Okay. So it's been a lot of different things have happened just by me kind of diving in.
And Project Touchbase actually came up in my talk yesterday where we were talking about suicide prevention. So tell us a bit about Project Touchbase.
Project Touchbase is a social media initiative which encourages folks to reach out, reconnect, and touch base. And we have a very simple formula. Pick 3 people you haven't talked to in a while, shoot them a message that says, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. How's things going?" You can meet them for coffee. You can do something, but really continue the conversation. One of the things that we learned, especially here in the U.S., is that our community is so spread out. Not all of us come from a very welcoming place. Like maybe our home communities aren't as strong as we like them to be, so we can feel isolated and alone. Okay. So by continuing to reach out to the people that we only see maybe once a year at Claw, or maybe every couple months at larger events, it's a way to kind of keep those bonds and that communication going.
Okay. So where did that come from? What led you to want to create this?
It was actually the loss of Pup Nizzy. He passed away. Figaro and I, it was right after we had just got done competing at IPC in July of that year, and Nizzy passed away. And Figaro and I had enough. We're like, we've got to do something. The Northwest PAC at that time had lost a lot of folks. And so they were actually coming into IPC after a recent loss. So it was very much a sequence of events, and it's like, hey, we have this opportunity, to use our bond, across the country. He's from Vancouver, Canada. I'm down here in Columbus, Ohio. So we have a really great opportunity to kind of really do something great for the community at large. So Project Touchbase was born.
So have you had some successes through this project?
We have. We've had a lot of folks kind of reach out to us through our page on Facebook, just kind of be like, hey, because of something you said today, it made my day better because I was having a really crappy day. We've had other folks message the page personally and kind of use it as a Dear Abby, where we just kind of, our inbox is full of stories and messages of folks that are like, hey, today's really sucked. And, you guys don't have to respond, but I know you're here and I know someone's listening. And that helps.
So what sort of, has it picked up? Have you noticed that more and more people have become interested in the project? Or?
Yeah, it's something that we've always kind of grown or organically. It's, we talk about it, we wear our pins, we move stuff along, but it's it's really up to everyone to kind of continue to keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
So it's been really awesome. It's been a really great experience for myself and Figaro, and it's been a way to even help us keep in touch. Our lives have gotten predominantly more busy since he stepped down as International Puppy.
Yep.
And so it's been good for us to kind of use that as our circle back point.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed that you're wearing an International Puppy tag.
Yeah.
So what's the significance of that?
So every year at International Puppy, you get a pack tag. Mm-hmm. Similar to how the competitors at IML get their IML medallion as a contestant, we get pack tags.
Okay.
This is it's a really important tag to me, and so I always kind of try and keep it close.
Cool. But it's not just the Touchbase that you've worked in multiple arees within the community that I've noticed. Certainly within you've done HIV prevention, you've done. You've put out some information for people who are recovering from substance use. Mm-hmm. What's led to the desire? It sounds like you're keen to contribute back.
When I got into the community, I was coming out of the roughest point of my life. Mm-hmm. I was maybe 3 months completely clean from crystal meth myself. Mm-hmm. I was still kind of coming to terms with what it meant to be someone who's HIV positive. And, it's something that, yes, as a community, we're very sex positive. We're very all about, love who you are, love every part of you, but there are still some parts that are hard to talk about. So if I can be that person, whether through humor, whether through resources, then, why not?
Do you think there's it's interesting in Australia, right? That the community's changing. Mm-hmm. That there was, and to a degree there still is, a lot of discrimination for people who are living with HIV. And what I've noticed is that PrEP is changing that. Have you noticed a similar shift within the United States, or?
I've noticed that it's now kind of going more to the rest of the community. PrEP since its inception has always been really heavy within the leather and kink communities. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of starting to filter out and spread out to the rest of the community, which has been great.
Yeah.
My partner, he's HIV negative, recently got on PrEP as of 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. It was a 2-year process for us to get him on PrEP.
2 years to get on PrEP?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and this is, America, we don't have a healthcare system, we have a disease management system.
Yep.
And there's, it's expensive if you don't have insurance, so he finally was able to get insurance through work and everything else, so he was able to get it, which has been amazing for us. It was a really good, hey, we're taking care of each other by doing this.
And absolutely within the dynamic of a relationship, I know that I'm yet to meet a single HIV positive person that would ever wish to transmit the virus to somebody, particularly somebody they care about, or anybody.
Right.
And PrEP must be a relief to people living with HIV to think, well, they're taking ownership of their own serostatus.
No, it is, and for my partner Seth and I, it's just one more layer of protection. My job, as his partner is to keep him safe, keep him happy, keep him healthy. And by him getting on PrEP, it's just one more way for us to do that.
Sure, absolutely. Do you think within the pup community, HIV is not really talked about? Certainly not within my circles of pups that I'm aware that people don't really feel. I don't know whether it's a comfort thing or whether it just some people don't feel that it's right to talk about.
Most people talk about it as they're walking off to someone's hotel room.
Okay.
And it's like, that's the conversations that, I hear. But I feel like we need to keep having those conversations. It's great that, my friends and family and people that I consider, brothers and sisters, every December 1st, they're on it for World AIDS Day. But for me, every day is World AIDS Day.
Absolutely. It's an opportunity to continue a discussion.
Right. And so it's, having folks understand, that, this, while yes, it's not a death sentence anymore, we do have some great treatments out there. It's still rough.
Yeah.
Like, it's, even within this community, it's sometimes hard to talk about because you still constantly have that fear of, is he going to reject me if I tell him? It's, even though we all, it's Mr. Friendly's everywhere and, everyone's, knows about PrEP, that mental stigma that we get socially outside of our community is still deep-seated.
Absolutely. And I was really thrilled that just through wearing a Mr. Friendly shirt while I was earlier in my travels, that I was able to open not a conversation not only about pup play, but also about HIV, and the person felt safe enough to be able to talk about their HIV status. And I think, anybody who's brave enough to have that conversation, it can't be easy. And I say thank you. I really appreciate you telling me I'm on PrEP and your status is your status.
Right.
And it's a private thing, and I appreciate the fact that you felt safe enough to share that. I just wish that everybody would be able to give those sort of responses, because I don't think everyone's as cool as... I'm not saying I'm cool, but I'm saying that I'm friendly. I'm open to whatever.
Right.
This is where I think Mr. Friendly is good.
Mr. Friendly's been amazing just to even start conversations. When it comes to just, wearing my, I've worn my Mr. Friendly shirt to, local punk shows, and they're like, "That's a really cool design. Like, what's it about?" And so I'm able to talk to folks who are never gonna set foot into events like Claw or IML or MAL or Folsom, then have those conversations with them, and then they now know the story and they know the message of Mr. Friendly.
Absolutely. Is there much resources for gay men who have struggled with substance misuse or abuse? Or
the only resources that are in the U.S. that I've kind of encountered are going to be your 12-step programs. And
I've often found them quite cold because they're generally religious based.
Yeah, it's, when I first started to, clean up myself, I was going to 12-step meetings, and it was good for a while, but it's so faith-focused, and I'm like, and a lot of gay men have issues with organized religion because of what they've done to our community with their beliefs. So it's this weird, like, how can I be safe and be open to talk about something that I'm dealing with when I don't know if I can trust the person sitting next to me because they're always talking about, their higher power.
Yeah.
So it's all about finding the right kind of folks. So I know that locally we have a CMA group back home that meets at our local LGBT center twice a week.
What's a CMA?
Crystal Meth Anonymous.
Oh, okay. You don't have to answer this question. I'm not asking people to bleed all over the floor,
right.
But what did it take for you to make a decision that things had to change?
It was my younger brother. I come from a very large family. I have a lot of brothers and sisters, and a lot of them kind of married folks who already had kids. But my younger brother, who's the one who's directly behind me, his son was the first one we got to kind of anticipate.
Okay.
And so it was a really exciting time for my family. And I was really jazzed. Even though I was still strung out, I was really jazzed. He told me that if I wanted to see him, I needed to shape up.
Okay.
And that was kind of one of the things. There were a couple other events that kind of led up to that. I have a really good friend who's in the community here, who I was living with for a time when I was getting started down that road, and he noticed it way before I did, and kicked me out.
Okay.
Definitely showed me some tough love.
Yeah.
And it's only been within the past couple of years we've been able to kind of reconnect, and I've been able to look at it and be like, thank you for seeing what I couldn't.
Yeah.
Like, thank you for showing me that, there were going to be consequences.
What would you've walked the road, but none of us are experts in everything, right? But what would you recommend to a gay man who is struggling with substance use?
Find a reason other than yourself to do it.
Mm-hmm.
There are still days, even now, where I have a couple years under my belt clean from crystal meth. There are still days where it's hard, where I think about using, or I have a dream that really kind of shakes me, and I want to. And on those days, Seth, my partner, keeps me sober.
Okay.
My friends keep me sober, because on those days it's hard to do it for myself, because I don't feel like I'm good enough.
Okay. And events like this because I imagine that these are a pinnacle point where a lot of people will use substances.
And when it comes to, there's substance. I don't know. I've never seen crystal meth here at Claw or know of its presence at any other events. But I'm not dumb enough to say I'm sure it's not sneaking around in somebody's room. These events are centered around alcohol. There's a mini bar in every corner. So if alcohol is your vice, these events are going to be hard.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say about Claw, though, is that there's been 12-step meetings every day, at least one or two, sprinkled throughout the program. And that's something that I really admire about being a part of Claw and someone who's gone down that path of recovery, because I know that, we're about the parties and we're about the bar, the bars in every corner. We're still offering space to folks that need it.
Absolutely. And in the other breath is that Claw is offering an education space as well. So there are fun and events, and there was a pup mosh last night that was a heap of fun, and a pup pool party, and pup. You couldn't swing anything without hitting a pup.
Right.
So, but I think to have on the other side of that coin is that you are creating an environment of sharing of information. I think that that's always going to be a really big plus to any event.
Definitely.
You're creating the community, right? And that's been certainly my experience, that it's been really good. I've learned so much from having the opportunity to hang out with people who really know their shit.
Right.
So where do you see the human pup community in the next 5 to 10 years?
It's gonna continue to grow. Like, puppies bring a really unique energy to any event. I was talking to a couple other lead volunteers like myself, and we're like, it's funny that you look around at the volunteers, a lot of them are puppies. A good portion of our volunteer pool for Claw, which is all volunteer run, is puppies.
Yep.
We bring a solid energy to it, which is amazing, and I'm hoping that energy's still there. I will probably be on the side of the mats.
Did you get time to charge down and enjoy the experience?
I get moments. My beta, this is his first big event. First mosh ever was last night. So I took him out on the quiet mats and did some one-on-one time, got him used to it. Paired him with another puppy that I know and that I trust to have them some one-on-one time. Then he did a small group. So it was a really good kind of stepping into it to kind of ease his anxiety about things.
It could be quite intimidating. I must admit, I found it interesting that to walk into the mosh pit last night, I had to physically push 3 rows of observers out of the way.
Yeah.
And I find that kind of interesting. Why do you think there were 3 rows of people watching the pups play?
Because while puppy play in the U.S. has exploded, it's not often that spaces like moshes happen.
Okay.
A lot of the local groups will try and make it happen, and large events will try and have a space for that to happen. But not every pup group can do that. And not every large event or small event has time for a puppy mosh. So it's been really awesome. We have a really great group of title holders this year within the puppy community.
Yeah.
Who have been really great about getting out there and getting down with everybody, which has been nice. It's always, for me, as one of the old dogs of Claw, it was nice to look out and see, Incus and Kona, down there with everybody else, which I think sets a really good tone for, puppies as a whole. It's like, it doesn't matter that, who you are, where you are, what you do, if you have a title, what your title is. I'm still going to get down and romp with you.
Yeah.
And I like that message.
Cool.
And I hope that continues.
Why do you think pup play is so popular?
Pup play has given a lot of young men and women a safe and easy way to explore kink and figure out who they are sexually. There are no hard and fast rules with puppy play. If I was trying to come into this community as a boy, there would be a list of things that, this is what a boy does. If I was trying to come in as a sir, this is what a sir does.
Yep.
These understood rules, which even within those roles, all that's, subjective. But with puppy play, it's like, oh, you're a puppy? Cool. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So it gives folks a way to kind of jump in and explore in a safe way and really figure out who they are.
Yep.
I came into the larger leather kink community as a leatherman, found puppy as a place to grow and make mistakes where it was okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to do it right the first time. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to break protocol, whatever that means.
Yeah.
I'm going to, do things wrong. I'm going to say the wrong thing to the wrong person.
Yep.
But puppy gave me a way to make mistakes and have it be okay and learn from it. Instead of coming in a different way and not having that opportunity.
And I think, there's the oft spoken about issues that there were some rowdy pups last year, right? And
yes,
this year it's, as far as from my side of the room, everything seemed to be running very, very smoothly, very, very efficiently. But even in the talk that I presented, we know that pups are going to be pups, right?
Right.
That they're there to be trained, right? But we have a lack of handlers. It's almost like it's the Tupperware drawer, right? There's all of the bottoms, but not enough tops, which is...
Also sounds like Cleveland, but it's okay.
There's nothing wrong with being the one top in the drawer sometimes. But do you think that maybe as part of the community engagement is that we actually need to cultivate handlers as much as we need to cultivate pup?
I think we need to cultivate handlers. We need to cultivate pups. But we also need to start identifying our own. Find, the pups who have been around for a while who don't need to mosh every time there's one around. And I was talking to a local pup here in Cleveland. We both kind of jumped in this community at the same time, and we were making the joke last night that, the older we get, the more time on the sidelines we have. And we're okay with that because that kind of becomes our role.
Yeah.
You gotta, teach everyone and share what you know. And if there's a lack of handlers, older, wiser, more experienced pup can kind of fill that role for, an evening. Doesn't mean that he's a handler all the time, but I'm helping this new pup, get acclimated.
Yep.
I'm showing him some best practices. So,
if you had a new pup, somebody who was young, wanting to explore and learn more about human pup play, what would you recommend for them?
I always recommend a myriad of things. We live in the world of the world. We live in the world of the internet.
Yeah.
There's lots of amazing resources out there. We now have we have Woof, which has been, kind of almost the standard text, the kind of go-to. But we also now recently have Bark, which is now more updated. More like, this is kind of where we are now. I encourage folks to get out there however they feel comfortable. Go to a bar night, find someone on, FetLife or Facebook or somewhere in between, and ask questions. Because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. And sometimes you got to get out there to get the feet wet before you get your paws in the mat.
Exactly.
Cool. So if somebody was wanting to contact you to talk about whether it's Project Touchbase or being a pup or a variety of other topics that clearly that you're keen to engage people with, what's the best way for people to be able to contact you?
They can find me through Facebook. I'm on there. You can type in Pup Havok, end it with a K, not a C, and I'll pop right up.
So Havok.
Havok.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's very appreciated, and appreciate what you've done this weekend for the Claw community.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.